Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Road to Cheltenham. We are back in the studio after our road trip to Punchestown, Ruby. It was great to see Paul there. It was great, Paul Townend.
It was very good, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Nice of him to come and join us, and yeah, he was very informative, very good.
I know that you all very much liked what he had to say at home. Also, there was an unanswered question from that episode. You wanted to know what time form rated Coco Star's debut.
I assume they excluded him, but anyway, what did they rate him?
148.
P?
They didn't mention whether there was a P or not. But, I mean, you know, I suppose the point is that great horses don't necessarily need to clock a big figure or, you know, record a big figure first time. You know, they just do what they need to. You have to win the race, and some horses also develop. I'm not saying that applies to him, that latter point. You rode in that race and you're saying that it was worth more.
Just proves my opinion on ratings. They're only opinions.
I knew I was on a loser there. I was never, ever going to win one. Right, OK. This week, we're focusing on novice hurdlers. We've been promising it for a while. It's quite a murky picture. But first, we're going to have a look at the more established hurdlers, because there's quite a bit of news this week, starting with something that just emerged today, and that is that Constitution Hill will be running in the International on Saturday week. Nick Lightfoot, earlier today at Wincanton, caught up with his trainer, Nicky Henderson.
Well, I mean, I think after Kempton, I was pretty keen just to keep the dampeners on everything and say we'd probably go straight there, but let's just see how he is. Yeah. And the answer, we've had a chance to see how he is, and he has just come through that. I don't say remarkably well, but you know, we know there was a lot of room for improvement. We think there is, and he's taken it very, very well, and he sees bright in himself. He will have a bit of work in the morning. Now, I say that is subject to everything going well tomorrow morning, but I think it's better to say now this is what we intend to do. Okay. We'll jump a hurdle next week, okay, I suspect, because that really just, a bit like John Bond, just 4 or 5 days before they run, it flicks their switch, it tells them it's coming, and it puts them right onto the on the button. He needs to do one bit of work. I say he seems great. Everybody's very happy. My first reaction would have been probably no, but Michael was keen. I was keen if he was right. And I mean, after a fortnight, he was saying, look, I'm here, I'm fine. Yeah. So, come on, we missed so much last year. Let's get out and have some more of it.
Absolutely, here. This is great news, but I'll be honest, Ruby, I was surprised because I thought him coming back after such a long break, having to run quite big in the Christmas hurdle, that might take more out of him, but no, he's bouncing. No,
they seem happy enough, but you wonder, did they watch Brighter Days Ahead in Leopardstown and think, we have to show a bit more and frighten her back to the mares race?
Well, he did mention Brighter Days Ahead in that interview, actually. You can catch up with the full interview on the website. And he said she was, really impressive. And he just noted that going that speed, they'd taken Lossiemouth out of the comfort zone, but Constitution Hill, he thinks, would be really comfortable with the kind of pace that's
what you saw of Constitution Hill in Kempton. It was just that swagger was there. All right, he had to go and work a bit at the end of the race, but God, how he goes through a race is a thing of beauty.
Yeah, I think he's just frightened off a few people from the Univet International Hurdle at Cheltenham on Saturday week. But what great news from Nicky Henderson. There was other news regarding the Champion Hurdle. Potentially, we could have the first Japanese-trained runner in the race, a horse called All the World, Ruby.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend to know what All the World is, Lydia, because I haven't got a clue. We can watch him running in Tokyo, where he ran in the Tokyo high jump. Look, when you look at this, it's 1 mile 7.5 furlongs. The time of the race is 3 minutes 24.8 seconds, which is trapping. They jump across between a hurdle and a fence, but you have to be really quick at it. It is green tarmac. That's the only other thing. I rode there twice, and I think English racing ground would be an absolute shock to all the world, but it's marvellous that he's entered. To have a Japanese runner or an international runner at Cheltenham of that scale would be huge. You look at Australian racing this week, National Hunt racing, they're being cut back again, 10 more races lost, the season shortened again. It would be great to have a Japanese runner come to Cheltenham.
It looks fast, doesn't it? And it's interesting you say it's fast. You've won a Nakayama Grand Jump, haven't you?
Yeah, but I rode in the Pegasus before that, which was 2 miles, and that was just absolutely flat out. Now, they do turn them as steeplechases. So we were looking at this earlier. Like, he won in January of 2024, so how could he be a novice Well, it depends on whether it's seen as a chase or a hurdle, doesn't it? And I wonder what way the BHA are going to view that.
Yeah, we should explain. John Pullen, the clerk of the course, who's very excited. He's at Cheltenham, very excited that they've got this Japanese entry. He was saying it's not certain the champion hurdle will be where he's going. They're also looking at handicaps and novices. They just want to get
handicaps.
How he's going to be. Well, exactly.
That's just
how they're going to work that out?
The normal way of doing it.
180. Right, okay, so that is really exciting news about all the world. Let's have a look at the impact of the entries, because we've got entries this week for the champion, the mares and the stayers. This is the lowest champion hurdle entry yet at 16. The mares entries are kind of levelling out, and the stayers hurdle has attracted the largest entry of the three, with 21 of the 36 from Ireland. 76 individual horses with one or more entries. 10 are doubly entered, 4 in the champion the mares, 4 in the mares and the stayers, and 2 in the champion the stayers. No triple entries. I should mention that Sinicia, who is entered in the Queen Mum, is also in the champion hurdle, and Hewick, who is also in the Gold Cup, is in the stayers. And of course, Sir Gino, you'd expect also to be in the Arkle. He's in the champion hurdle, and Stella Story, who is also in the stayers, you would probably expect to be in the Brown Advisory. I mentioned Sir Gino. The champion hurdle, Joe and Mary Donnelly are all over this, aren't they? They've got 4 entries covering lots of different options here, haven't they?
They have Amsterdam, obviously, down your left, Kitzbühel on the right, Stateman, Sergino. Yeah, they're covering all angles. The only problem for Joe and Mary Donnelly is that they don't own Constitution Hill or Brighter Days Ahead. But look, Kitzbühel, I was very surprised by him the other morning, Lydia. I stood into him in the yard. He's all of 17 hands. I didn't realise he was quite as big a horse as he is. Amsterdam run at the end of the month. Obviously, with Constitution Hill going to go to the International, that might rearrange running plans for 1 or 2 of those. There is the Limestone Lad Hurdle in Naas the day before. You'd imagine one would go there. You do have the Red Mills. One could go there. And, of course, the Irish Champion Hurdle. But I don't know how keen Willie will be to send one across the Irish Sea to take on Constitution Hill at Cheltenham.
Yeah, well, particularly after we tried it with Lossiemouth.
Yeah, tried and failed.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the 4 mares that are in both the mares and the champion hurdle. You know 2 of them, but there are 2 more as well. Golden Ace and Cargizi. Jeremy Scott, I think it's quite possible the Golden Ace could end up in the champion hurdle. It depends on what happens in the race formerly known as the Betfair Hurdle at Newbury in February. So those 4, and then we should also mention about the kites that we flew earlier, Ruby.
That crashed?
Well, no, two of them are
still flying,
airborne. Yeah, 2 of them are airborne. In particular, Mystical Power and Buddy One are both entered in the Stayers Hurdle. We suspected that might be the case. Mystical Power, of course, last of 6 in the Neville Hotels last time we saw him, and Buddy One seemed to be struggling a little bit over fences so far. He was 3rd of 4 behind Croke Park, with Stella Story, who's also entered behind him in 4th.
Yeah, I can see Buddy One. He definitely doesn't look like he's really taking the fences, and Mystical Power even needs to, hopefully it's the trip, but he doesn't look to be firing on all cylinders at the moment.
Not at all, not at all. Buddy One, of course, was 4th in the Stayers last time. Now, there is one kite grounded, I'm afraid.
Corbetts Cross.
Yeah. This is what Emmett Mullins had to say. He says, basically, the Gold Cup's the plan. They've just been building from the start of the season. He says that the King George was a little disappointing because he didn't finish off the race, but he said he knew that he hadn't got the prep into him. You know, remember, he was due to run in the Betfair Chase and couldn't.
Chase, and didn't go, that's right.
Yeah.
Ran in Wexford, though, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did. The last sentence is the ominous one, I feel. When you're someone with the ability of Emmett Mullins and the target training that he's shown himself capable of, I think the performance is in him, and I've definitely been training for just one day with one day in mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, and he was a horse that I taught as a novice hurdler that had the world at his feet. He just hasn't convinced me as a chaser. He gets very high, he spends a lot of time in the air, and he needs to get down and through the air if he's going to win a Gold Cup. I think he has the stamina, and I think he's a very good horse, but he just hasn't convinced me as a chaser.
Okay. Emmett also had some news about Noble Yeats, and that seems to be that they're pressing pause on his career at the moment. He's gone back to the Whaley Cohens. He refused to enter the parade ring at Leopardstown over Christmas. I didn't realise that. And Emmett has said, again, this is on the Nick Luck Daily podcast, you have to listen to the horse. And he fairly told us at Leopardstown this wasn't what he wanted to do. But, I mean, he's won the Grand National in 2022. The following season, he was 4th in the Gold Cup and the Grand National. He's been to the Grand Steep de Paris. He's won a Cleve. I mean, if this is the end of his innings, what a varied and compelling career he's had. Wouldn't
you love, as an owner, if every horse you had could achieve what he has achieved? That would be the ultimate dream. But look, he was a very, very good horse, and if that's the end of him, I'm sure he'll have a good home with the Whaley Cohens.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have a discussion later on, but that seems to be the plan at the moment. Windsor, of course, have got the Winter Millions tomorrow and Sunday. Willie Mullins had a couple of horses entered for that. One was Galamarceau, the other one was Kit's Boole, who you mentioned.
It just felt Windsor could be very, very testing, and there was other options for them. Galamarceau could go to Warwick for a mare's hurdle. She's also entered in handicap hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival, and Kit's Boole would have the Limestone Lad and or the Red Mills as well. So there's plenty of options for them at home. So he didn't send them, but Cargeese and Enagramine are in Ascot on Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. Let's have a look at the Warfield field. It's the betting for the mare's hurdle over 2 mile 3, facing potentially Take No Chances, Casa Nomento and All the Glory, 3 other horses that are also entered in the mare's hurdle at Cheltenham. Right, so that's the Warfield mare's hurdle on Saturday. The next thing we're going to do is to jump into the novice hurdling. Right, from this point onwards, it's pedal to the metal. It really is. We have got a lot to get through. And the point is that the novice hurdling division is really, inchoate. It's confusing me. I don't really know where to start. Well, there is actually an obvious place to start.
Confusing, or is that the road? I mean, that's the beauty of it. That's what you go racing every week, to see these horses, to try and find one that you think, wow, that's the one I like. But yeah, I think the picture is very murky still, and I think that's brilliant. I think it'd be great if it could stay that murky and you might have 16 or 17 in the Supreme.
We'll start with the Supreme, shall we? The Sky Bet Supreme, which has Salvatore Mundi at 7-2 as the favourite. Romeo Coolio next in at 6-1, and it is 12-1 and upwards the rest. Now, of course, Salvatore Mundi ran in the Moscow Flyer, and that performance rather divided opinion. So we asked you, the roadies, this question about him. Has he done enough to justify his position as 7-2 favourite for the Supreme Novices Hurdle? How do you think that played out?
Do I think he should be favourite? I think he enhanced his credentials for the race. Would I have made him favourite? I don't know. That's a bit above my pay grade, what should be favourite and what shouldn't be favourite. But I do think he enhanced his credentials. OK,
well, most people agreed with you. 61%. As plays with 39%, and lots of people explained their reasoning, and there's a couple of punchy points coming up first. Anti-post value says Willie Mullins won't win any of the novice hurdles at the Cheltenham Festival. What do you make of his point? He says, I'll await the wrath of Ruby.
No, I mean, it's happened before. It's 2018, I think, was the last year Willie didn't win any of the Grade 1 novices, and we'll go through the horses he has this year. Is there a horse like Appreciated? Ballyburn, of course, didn't really jump out to the DRF last year. Appreciated had jumped out earlier than that. Is there a Sir Gerhard or a Monkfish? Go back before you get to Vitour. No, there hasn't been one just yet, but there might be.
We've got a similar view from Cheltenham Countdown. You think it's a controversial opinion, Cheltenham Countdown, but it's just been made as well. He thinks Romeo Coolio is the prime one for the Supreme, Potter's Charm for the Turners, and the Bartlett is slightly disjointed at the moment. You can say that again.
I think they all are. the Cheltenham counter. Romeo Coolio impressed me, Potter's Charm, yeah, they're very good horses, but I think it's great. I think it's great there's a spread of horses, there's competition.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it means that we've got quite a lot to talk about. There seems to be zooming in on Salvador Mundi in particular. This is what Eddie Boylan has to say. What do you think, Ruby, of Headgear going on him so early? He thinks it's not something associated with Willie Mullins' runners normally.
No, I don't know about that, Eddie. I think Willie does use them. He would use a lot of earplugs, I suppose, which aren't as visible to people at home or even to racecourses if you don't look at the horse in the parade ring. The hood is slightly more restrictive than that again. But no, I think Willie does use a lot of hoods and earplugs. So, no, I wouldn't worry about it being perceived to be early. He did put it on him last year in the Triumph.
Yeah. And we'll come back to Corbetts de Berg, Eddie, later on in the show. Clive Lawler has also zeroed in on the hood. He says, I can't recall a horse with a hood ever winning the Supreme. Can you?
You're right, Clive.
Yeah.
I don't think they have. And we looked back through them earlier. We went back as far as 2013. It definitely hasn't happened since then. But I think there's only been 9 horses since 2013 that have actually even ran in the Supreme with a hood.
Many of them Willies?
4 or 5, I would say.
Okay.
Probably. I'm trying to think. 2 last year, Mr. Giff and Mystical Power definitely did. Petit Mouchoir would have. And I had the rest of them written down, but I think it was 4, somewhere between 4 and 5 maybe.
Okay, and Mystical Power obviously got pretty close to it.
It was second last year, yeah. I wouldn't take it as a negative personally, but I think I would prefer to see a free horse wearing a hood and giving him a chance to settle than a keen one not wearing it.
Okay. All this talk about a hood leads us obviously naturally back to having a look at the Moscow Flyer and Salvatore Mundi. First of all, we're going to focus on his demeanour before the race. Yeah,
I didn't like it, and even when he got to the start, I was working on Saturday, and I don't know, look at his ears in the hood. I don't know, was the hood too big for him or what was going on, but his ears are at weird angles. A horse's ears usually go forward and backwards. They don't tend to go off to the sides like his is, like a donkey's.
A cattle horn always.
Yeah, so I don't know, was that too big? I initially thought when I was working on Sunday that maybe it was the cross noseband and the tongue tie, but I noticed Patrick must have thought the same because he went straight into the winner's enclosure and checked them, and he didn't think it was either of those, neither did Paul, but something was really agitating or annoying him on Sunday.
Okay. Well, let's examine the race itself. Despite him being agitated and being keen and not jumping particularly well, he still managed to win.
He did, and he was quite keen early. He looked like he was going to be. Now, Paul did, when he got to the start, and that's a position you can get in, he got between Mr. Rango and Arctic Lane, and when you're riding a keen one, being between 2 horses is never an ideal position because you've got competition from either side of you, and he does charge up to the first hurdle, but the horse on his inside, Mr. Rango, is a bit slow at the first. Salvador Mundi jumps it really well, which I think is about the only hurdle he jumped really well, and lands into the position right behind Relieve the Duties. And then Paul gets into the pocket right behind Danny Gilligan. Goes to the second, gets in quite deep. I imagine Paul is trying to settle him, but he never gets him going again. Skylord took over. Now, they didn't go really slow. They went 29, 30 miles an hour. It was sedate, but it wasn't really slow. But Salvador Mundi got quite deliberate at a couple of these hurdles, and I actually thought he was beaten here, Lydia, at the second last hurdle when Skylord Quick and Cheltenham, and you look, Relieve the Duties goes to the gap between Cheltenham and Skylord here. Mark Walsh is trying his best to keep Danny Gilligan in. That's good race riding. And then Paul Townend comes close to Mark Walsh, as he should. You should be keeping it tight. Paul gets by Mark before he crosses him, but Danny bumping out pushes Mark to Paul. I think that's the way the steward saw it as well. And again at the last hurdle, you were disappointed with Salvador Mundi here. He's gotten to the front. Paul keeps giving him a squeeze. He runs in and bunny hops it again. Cheltenham does get going then. But look, Salvador Mundi, I thought he did really well to win. So I think he has improved his credentials for a Supreme. He's beaten 3 previous winners. The race he won in Tipperary was irrelevant as regards winning the race. But look at the speed loss, the ones in yellow. I think when you're losing over 3 miles per hour, is worrying for a hurdler. 5 times in the Triumph hurdle he did, 6 times at Punchestown he did, and 3 times at Tipperary. When you look at other horses, novice hurdlers this year, like the New Lion never lost more than 2.2 miles an hour at Newbury. When you're losing over 3 miles per hour, it's an issue for a hurdler.
The interesting thing about that graphic is it shows that it's not a one-off.
No, that's what surprised me. I thought in my own mind, he jumped really well in the Triumph, but when I went back and looked at it, he jumped okay. He did make one pretty awkward mistake at the last hurdle. We can have a look at that. Brian Hayes rode him. He's on the inside in the second colours of Marion Joe Donnelly. But again, that was a little bit like how he was at Punchestown.
Very much so.
You know, he's going to have to brush up on his jumping. And unfortunately, and it's an establishment I'm part of, a lot of Willie Mullins' novice hurdlers, or a good few, haven't jumped well this year.
Paul said afterwards that, you know, we know he can jump. He didn't seem to be bothered about the jumping. I assume he must school very well, but this is that data there is in race conditions.
It is, and I was looking at it earlier. Whatever way you look at the race IQ data, to me, I look at the speed lost one. And when hurdlers, you should be losing between 2 and 2.5 is acceptable. When you get over 3, you're losing a lot, and they add up in championship races.
The stewards, you mentioned the stewards, they did see it the same way as you, apart from they did advise the riders to give each other more space if they found themselves in the same position in the future.
Race riding is race riding. You can't be doing that. You've got to keep it tight. What do you want to do? Pull out? Come on, have a go.
Like it's likely to happen as well. It made me giggle. I thought Cheltenham was a little unfortunate as well. I mean, he's a smaller scale model than the other 3.
He is. Probably what's surprising about the race was maybe Skylord, Cheltenham, one or the two of them didn't go a bit quicker. Thought they would. It was a strong enough race in Cork. I thought both of them at Cork looked like they maybe wanted a really strong 2 miles.
OK, now I know that there's a perception out there that Willie Mullins' Supreme horse runs in the Moscow Flyer, and we just wanted to examine the truth of that, really. We've gone back as far as 2013 because we think that gives enough data either side of 2018 when the Dublin Racing Festival was created, and that's an important marker.
Yeah, it is. Look, the Tour won both. He won the Moscow Flyer and went to the Delight as it was at the time. Duvan, Mellon won a maiden hurdle. Champagne Fever had won the Delight, but after Get a Bird in 2018, Classical Dream, Asturian Falange, Appreciated, Facile Vega and Tully Hill didn't, but 5 of them came, the others came from the Dublin Racing Festival. So the perception, and maybe the perception isn't there, but I feel it is, that the Moscow Flyer is Willie's pointer to the Supreme. That has changed a bit in recent times.
Yeah, because the old Deloitte was at a
2 miles and 2.
Yeah, and at a slightly different time as well, wasn't it?
A week earlier.
A week,
yeah, it was or a week later. No, it was a week later. The Gold Cup was a week after, so it was Gold Cup day, and it came. You could actually run in the Moscow Flyer and the Delight, but it was
did.
Yeah, but it was 2 miles and 2, and it tended to throw maybe some more Ballymore horses.
Okay.
Not Ballymore. What is it now? Turners.
Turners. Well done. I turned away smoothly, thinking, yes, that's right. No, Turners.
Turners. I'm very sorry.
Right. Okay. Let's have a look at some of the other key contenders in this division. And Romeo Coolio clearly pushed himself forward by winning the Grade 1 at Leopardstown over Christmas.
Yeah, he did. Got a much different ride to the one he got in the Royal Bond. Carnick nearly fell at the second patch. He did great to stay on him. But Sam Ewing, then when he got to the front and Romeo Coolio kept the gallop up, and he jumped really well, this horse. They kept the pace up pretty much most of the way, 32, 33 miles an hour. It was a good, solid gallop. Now, when they disappeared into the fog, now Sia Sands at the very back, he was beaten so early, it was disappointing. But he missed the last Romeo Coolio, but I like the way he regained his momentum. He's a staying 2 miler. He's more along the lines of Champagne Fever, maybe, a little bit classier than him, but he's that kind of horse. He really wants to go, attack and jump, and I thought that was a really good performance. A couple of horses ran bad in that race. Carnick with the mistake, Carafon and Sia Sands and Willie Mullins. The 3 of those were bitterly disappointing. The second, of course, was Blue Devassi, who had pretty decent form, but I thought that was a good performance from Romeo Coolio.
Yes, and he's just in the Brave Inca, whereas Blue Devassi is in both the Grade 1 novice hurdles at the Dublin Racing Festival. Sia Sands, clinically abnormal after the race, and he was the one that Paul Townend mentioned on Sunday, was the one that suggested to him that things aren't all 100%.
No, and I think Paul thought Carnick had run a lot better than he did too, so they were definitely 2. There was a couple of Willies underperformed, but they were definitely 2.
And you said it was a different ride. You said after the Royal Bond, Sam Ewing probably went home wishing that he'd ridden a different race. So he put it right, didn't he? But
that's the beauty of sport, and that's the you're not human if you're not making mistakes.
Absolutely.
And you have to learn from them.
The key is to learn from them. Yeah. Absolutely. Right, Boxing Day, St Stephen's Day rather, at Leopardstown, and we saw Work Ahead, who was 3rd behind Jasmine DeVoe on Rule's debut, win making all. Yeah,
pretty deep maiden hurdle as well it was. You had obviously Redemption Day in there and a couple of other horses, William Money, Redemption Day, and Sprint de la Mar, who won the first at Ferryhouse today. But this fella booked out and jumped like a buck, Work Ahead. When he didn't go quite as quick maybe as they did and Romeo Coolio went on the following day, but but I love the way he jumped. Redemption Day didn't. Jammed on off out to his right there. William Money made a mistake here, but the horse in front never missed a beat. He was always in control of the race. Redemption Day and William Money were decent bumper horses, but the lad in front was pinging hurdles. Love the way he quickened up, jumped the last really well and galloped to the line. Redemption Day, another mistake at the back. But look, Barry Connell thought a hell of a lot of William Money, and these horses ran really well at Christmas. The third has gone and won since. It was a good performance. I believe Henry's going straight to March with this fella. But you'd like what you saw, and he improved from his first start.
Very much so. I think he was better than the bare form when third as well. I thought he shaped really well behind Jasmine DeVoe. You're right about what Henry was saying. Let's have a look at exactly that. He says it's going to be straight to the Supreme. It was a hot enough race beforehand, the one at Leopardstown, so to see him win the way he did was great. He'd been off a long time before he ran for us at Navan. That was behind Jasmine DeVoe, and 2 quite quick runs, so therefore we're going to back off and head straight to the Supreme. Is this a sort of staying type 2-miler as well?
Yeah, he is, not unlike Romeo Coolio, but again, he's a very quick, slick jumper, isn't he?
Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot. Right, OK, we're going to stick with Leopardstown, and this time we're going to talk about Coco de Board, as promised.
Yeah, and look, Winnie Hill and himself jumped out here to the first hurdle, but Coco de Board, this was one of his better jumps. The first hurdle he gets tightened even from the outside by Winnie Hill. Cowabunga's in the JP McManus colours, Zillow back there in the white and pink. But from here on it went backwards for Coco de Board. Jammed on at the second hurdle. That was quite ugly. Now they were doing 35 miles an hour. That wasn't great. Off to his left. Fourth hurdle, fifth hurdle, it's even uglier it's getting. And it didn't get much better by the time he got to the seventh hurdle. Now, I did watch him jump yesterday morning. Paul was riding him, and he jumped a hell of a lot better than this, but he's schooled in having better than this too. Misses the last. I think he has to be a really good racehorse, Lydia, to actually win the way he jumped. They're not bad horses behind him. Cowabunga in the JP McManus colours, Winnie Hill. All right, Zillow had one okay run before that, but Coco de Board to win the way he jumped, he's a hell of a good horse, but he has to jump much, much better than that.
Yeah, he does. What do you see for him trip-wise?
I don't know. They didn't hang around there. But again, it'll depend, I suppose, when he runs next. Like as I said, I did see him schooling yesterday, or Tuesday, he was jumping much better. But it'll be interesting. I mean, which ones will Paul want to ride? And that might decide what sort of trip he's going.
Yeah. I just want to mention Begora Man as well, who shaped quite well. That was his racecourse debut, not for grade ones, but I think he can build on that. Right, K Dorothy, all the Ks next for a Leopardstown maiden.
K year in France, was it?
Yes, it must have been.
Whatever that means.
K Dorothy beating Cocktail and Crack and Calix de la Barrière.
Cocktail Diving, is it? That's how Jerry Hannon was pronouncing it anyway. Booked out down the inside under Mark Walsh with his stablemate Calix de la Barrière. Bypassed that hurdle there. Now, Shermanzarak was favoured here, but he was beaten so early it wasn't funny. He was struggling away from the stands. K Doughty went in even enough gallop in front. Calix de la Barrière, he started jumping, started to go, made a mistake there, and a pretty bad, no, it was okay this one. He made a bad mistake down the back. I'd like to see the runner up here too, Cocktail Diving. I thought he showed plenty of boot. They pulled right away from Crack and third, but K Doughty, he looked like he was cantering when he fell in Navan. 2.5, I'm not sure. Mark's body language to me suggested he was always doing enough, but I think by the line he was just hanging on. That was 2.5. Was he never going to get beaten, but is he one maybe that could come back down and trip? I thought he kind of was watching him.
Mark said immediately afterwards, he's a big horse but uses himself well. I don't think you'll see the best of him until he goes chasing next season. Good. Is how he kind of sees it. But I agree with you about the runner-up. He really did keep on determinedly, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
And Calix de la Barrière, that was a horlicks of an error.
It was a pretty bad mistake again, but all these mistakes, they may start schooling them faster in Willies or something. Right, OK, let's go to New Year's Day and Tremor and pick up more Coco and his success. This was just one a bit left field. I think the way he won, like he could be a huge prize for any novice hurdle he got to. Brian Hayes rode him. Obviously, Paul was in Fairyhouse on New Year's Day, but more Coco. Look, Kilbarry Cece is the runner-up. She's only rated 100. Kilbarry Cece's only rated 102, but more Coco, I think, absolutely bolted in. He'd won a bumper prior to that. I think he jumped well. Does make a mistake here at the last hurdle with a circuit to run and gets a bit high then at the next hurdle for Brian. But from there on, it was a one-horse race, and I like horses that quicken uphill, and this fella does. Misses the second last a little bit, but he starts to accelerate against the hill, pings the last and wins as he wants. Look, he won't be in many people's radars, but I think he's a good bit better than whatever figure you could put on that. So
I was looking at the breeding, and Willie Mullins trained the half-sister a penny 100 that he's won
Tough
one of
little
each.
mare, yeah.
One of each with, didn't he? Bumper, a hurdle, and a chase. Now, more Coco, I'm just checking I'm right, isn't in the Dublin Racing Festival entries. Lots of the horses that we talked about earlier in the show are, though, and let's take a look at how that sort of an overview of those races. We're going to start with the Brave Inca, which is currently sponsored by Tattersalls Island. It's the one over 2 miles, and it shows you the number of runners, the number of individual trainers of those runners since 2018 when the DRF was created, and Willie Mullins' runners. And then on the bottom line, we've just got the entries. And I should stress that in this case here, that there are 8 Gordon Elliott trained horses as well as 10 Willie Mullins. So 18 of the 21 are either trained by Willie or Gordon.
Yeah. We were talking about it last Sunday on this show, wasn't it? I don't think those entries should have closed till this week. Now, that only would have thrown in a few more Willie Mullins runners, but it would have thrown in a couple of more. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That's the way it's been for a number of years.
Similar story also for the Golden Signet, which is sponsored and has been sponsored for a very long time by Nathaniel Lacey and Partner Solicitors. Again, we've got 18 entries there, 6 trained by Willie Mullins, 6 by Gordon Elliott. So between them, they have 2/3 of the field. And as you can see, this race in terms of runners has fluctuated a little bit more than has the Brave Inca. But again, we're going to have to hope that other trainers are able to actually get their horses there.
I'm trying to think about that 6 of 12 from Willie and Gordon, so that leaves 5 other trainers, so 5, 2, 7, 2, 9. Might get 9, maybe 10 runners.
Let's hope so. So let's hop over the Irish Sea to Britain, shall we, and go to Boxing Day in Aintree. It was the Formby Novices Hurdle. It's only existed there for 2 years, and it was won by Potter's Charm.
It was, for what we could see of it, the Formby. But I think a great decision by the Twist and Davises to come down and trip with Potter's Charm and go to the Formby with him. I think it would have taught him a lot. Again, he's a horse who loses plenty in the air, but he jumped out with road less travelled, and they went an even enough gallop. Now, Liverpool on St. Stephen's Day, Liverpool in December can be testing, let alone, or in November, let alone when you get into the middle or the end of December, how heavy it can be. But Potter's Charm was always towards the 4, road less travelled beside him. The horse in the orange colours, Miami Magic. Potter's Charm jumped right at the 4th last hurdle. Sam Twist and Davis got back over in front of him good and quick. They disappeared into the fog. Can't tell you how he jumped the 2nd last or the last hurdle, but what I do know is the Potter's Charm was still in front when he reappeared out of the fog. I think it was a good trial of him to come down and trip and win, and I think for his own development, a run at 2 miles here rather than a harder race in the Challow against the New Lion and those horses, I think will be beneficial to him. And I think that Tristan Davis has done a really good job with this horse all year. Miami Magic ran well, good and clever, came from a hopeless position, but I think riding a horse to run well on that kind of ground, you can flatter yourself, and I just think Good and Clever might have flattered himself.
Right, okay, because he was a little bit out of his ground slightly, wasn't he?
I think you can do that. If you never try to actually win the race, you can sometimes finish closer than you should.
Yeah, absolutely. Good and Clever, trained by Warren Greatrix, is in the Brave Inca, though, a British runner, a British runner.
Imagine that.
It would be great.
In a great
It would be
race.
really good. But I agree with you about Potter's Charm. Unbeaten in 4 hurdle starts, and I know that you were particularly pleased that they decided to go here rather than over further in the Challow with this horse.
I was. I mean, just sharpen him up. You know he stays.
Okay.
Try and make him a bit faster, a bit sharper.
Brief sojourn in Britain, that was. We're going to head back to Leopardstown and have a look at the enabler. This is the Jasmine DeVoe form as well. This is the horse that finished in front of Work Ahead when they all 3 met.
Yeah, it was, and this was one of Willie's that ran really bad. Argento Boy books out in front. Beside him was Port Julian, Danny Mullins. But I think at the 2nd hurdle, Port Julian had lost his position. Argento Boy made a mistake. The enabler jumps by him at the 3rd hurdle, and from there on, Sam Ewing was pretty much in control of the race. Now, Argento Boy does try to go with him. I Am Lorenzo is the horse in blue and green colours right behind him. Enabler quick and well off the bend, and actually did poach it off the bend. He got up to 34 miles an hour quick and sharply. He leaves I Am the Brownies, Port Julian and I Am Lorenzo here when Sam Ewing presses go on him. Now, he hadn't looked like he quite got home over 3 miles, the enabler. This was back to 2.5, but by the time he gets to the line, from looking like he's going to win half impressively, he is crying out for the line, and I Am Lorenzo's coming at him. I'm not certain what his trip was. Port Julian, I Am the Brownies. I think of this bunch, I would prefer Work Ahead. I probably would prefer Kate Doughty at 2.5 miles. There was a couple of other maidens I thought maybe they were a bit better than that one.
Okay. The enabler, Gordon has got the enabler in both novice hurdles at the DRF. I am Lorenzo, I quite like that run for further. He's in the Golden Signet over 2 miles 6.
The enabler's in Sunday, I think, in Thurles as well.
Ah, right, okay. We should also talk about Capagee Pike, who won at Punchestown on Sunday. We end where we started this section.
Yeah, he did. I just looked there, he's coming back in. I thought he improved from his run at Cork. Obviously, he was beaten by Skylord on that day. I thought he jumped really well, and he looked like a horse that was improving. And again, like last year, and it's been a slow winter, but all of these horses you're looking at, some of those would have ended up at handicaps in other years. None of them are going to have enough runs to be in handicaps. So if they do travel across the pond, they're going to be making up numbers and bulk in the novice hurdles.
I quite like this performance. When he clocked an overall identical time to Salvador Mundi on the same card.
And he jumped better.
He jumped really well. He did jump really well, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He jumped brilliantly. He improved a good bit. I'd actually thought watching him at Cork, he wanted a bit further.
Okay. Right, we're going to pause for a moment there, but we will be picking up on the other side, perhaps with horses that might want a little further.
Enjoy an unforgettable racing experience that includes a trip to the 2025 Dublin Racing Festival, courtesy of Race and Stay. We're giving away an incredible 6-night luxury stay for 2 that includes hotel, flights and transport, and 4 days racing, including 2 mouth-watering days of action at Leopardstown. You'll also enjoy a morning to remember with champion trainer Willie Mullins, getting to see some of his stable stars. It's an incredible opportunity open to Racing TV members. Find out more and enter now at racingtv.com/competitions or scan the QR code below.
So let's carry on our gallop through the novice hurdlers. Now you'll see that we're punctuating this with anti-post betting for the novice hurdles for the Cheltenham Festival. And we're kind of loosely collecting together in where they might run in terms of distance, but this is obviously a very movable feast. But let's have a look at the Turners novices hurdle betting, and the New Lion is the 5-2 favourite ahead of the Yellow Clay and Potter's Charm, both at 7-1. It is 10-1 Copec de Board, 14-1 Bar. Now, Harry Skelton might disagree with us putting the New Lion in this section, because he's always said he's not a slow horse. He quickens, and he says that it will be determined where he runs at Cheltenham, by the ground, either the Supreme, if it's testing, if it's quicker, it'll be the Turners.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with him. He's a brilliant jumper, really fast jumper at hurdles. A little bit grabby maybe if you were to question him. The one horse I did pull out of that shallow hurdle too was the runner-up, Wendigo.
Stayed on nicely, didn't he?
Albert Bartlett type horse, wasn't he? That's what I thought looking at him. Obviously Bill Joyce ran okay, Regent Stroll was a little bit disappointing, but I thought the New Lion was really impressive, really confidently ridden as well. And I think riding that way, maybe a Challow mightn't leave the mark and has left on horses in the past.
He looked class, didn't he?
All class.
Settled it for hands and heels, essentially. It was just really easy.
It's second last hurdle 2 counted, Bill Joyce and the New Line. Second last hurdle only 1 counted, the New Line, it was all over.
I agree with you about Wendigo. I wondered whether Bill Joyce did a bit too much. He was
possible,
quite fresh,
possible,
wasn't he?
yeah.
And I just want to mention Electric Mason as well, who cut out the running, found plenty for pressure. I don't think he's this grade, but I think he's quite game.
He was.
He was, wasn't he? Right, OK, Lawlors of Naas, and this was won by the Yellow Clay, and it was a race set up by his stable companion Wingmen, and Jasmine DeVoe tripped over most hurdles.
He did show at one point in the race that he could jump. Look, missed the first, he was pretty poor at it, wasn't much better at the third hurdle. Horse down the inside, Super Sunday, he was a big keen. 2 at the back, Butch Cassidy and Shuffle the Deck and Spasiba were flat out very early in this race. Here's Jasmine DeVoe jumping well. He can. He just doesn't do it regularly enough. The Yellow Clay went after the ones in front here, and Jasmine DeVoe, I'm not sure what he thought that hurdle was for, but he didn't even jump it. The Yellow Clay joined Wingman off the bend and commits plenty early, but he was really solid. He's a really likeable horse, the Yellow Clay. He did well to win at Navan, or yourself. We were working that day, yourself and Gary both thought he did. He didn't blow me away in Navan, but I liked what I saw in Naas. As for Jasmine DeVoe, he ran in a point. He's had 2 runs over hurdles. His jumping has not improved from his first start to his second start. There's a red flag on him for me. As for Super Sunday, Patrick felt he'd improved for the run, but I think the yellow clay could even be better on the sounder surface. And I think he's improving all the time. And look, he gets a bit tired late on, but it was testing ground and he committed plenty early. He's a very good horse too.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's very straightforward. That's a massive asset. Both Super Sunday and Jasmine DeVoe are in the Nathaniel Lacey, the Golden Signet, over further 2 miles 6 at the Dublin Racing Festival. Right, let's move to Limerick.
And the big negative there for Jasmine DeVoe will be that extra hurdle down the back straight in Leopardstown, in case they have to bypass late. Now, bypassing late might help him, but that extra hurl in the back straight won't suit him.
Yeah, neither you nor Paul seem to be, particularly positive about.
He would have had a lot of it as a young horse, and look, I'm a fan of that extra hurdle in the back straight in Leopardstown. I think the more jumping is better, but it's just be a worry for him.
Okay. I'm going to move you to Limerick for the maiden hurdle on the 28th, won by Final Demand. Now, I liked this performance. What did you make of it?
I liked it too.
Okay.
Danny booked him out, looked like he was going to go a strong gallop on him, but Danny jumps the first hurdle and then puts the handbrake on. But what Final Demand did was jump brilliantly every step of the way. Got into a decent position early. Second hurdle, he attacks it and jumps up behind the horse in front of him. Again, at the third hurdle, he was good. And at the fourth hurdle, this horse was crying out for jumping. But for some reason or another, somebody has decided that Limerick only needs 3 hurdles in the back straight. There's 5 fences. There used to be 5 hurdles. They're taking one out. I think it's a disgrace. It's a track with a beautiful back straight in, and there should be more jumping. Danny's told him down to jump the second last and again at the last, but he's absolutely bolted in. He couldn't do any more. He was a bit gassy at times, but it was his first run in a long time, and jumping is his forte. He was like the new lion. He's really good at it.
He is. He's not at all afraid of them, is he?
No, he loves it.
He
goes at it, and like, if he spots the jumps coming, he wants to get to them. That's a really good sign.
Why would they have removed hurdles?
No idea. I can't. It makes no logic.
When I was watching it, I was thinking, this is a long time on the flat.
And it's the same with Navan. They've done the same in Navan, taking out the second last hurdle. When you put that much galloping in, horses have harder races. I don't know. I don't know why the trainers in Ireland have accepted it.
Okay. Well, maybe they might change it. Let's have a look at the betting for the Albert Bartlett, because Final Demand does feature here. He's third in at 10-1. The yellow clay is there as well. Good and Elliott talking about heading for the Turners, though, at this stage. The Big Wester is the other joint favourite anti-post for the Albert Bartlett, and that's where we're going to go next for the Lions of Limerick, Jaguar, Land Rover, Doran's Pride Novice Hurdle, Take a Breath, which was won by the Big Wester.
You want a wide race card for that one, wouldn't you?
You really would.
The Big Westerner, and she was good. The Big Westerner, you had Mozzie's sister, Manila 6-0, Fleur in the Park had to make the run in Keane Quirk. Nobody wanted to make it. It was like they had a conference blow at the start, and then Keane set off in front on Fleur in the Park. But the Big Westerner travelled strongly under Darragh O'Keefe. She jumped really well. She was always wanting to get closer. I think Keane did really well to dictate this in front, but as the race developed, Jordan Gainford tried to push him on Manila 6-0 to make it some bit of a test of stamina, but Darragh O'Keefe arrives down, cantering on the Big Westerner, Shane Fitzgerald outside him and the Mozzie's sister, and this mare just comes out of his hands at the second last. Like, she'd think of her in the future and time. She loves jumping, she stays really well, she'd been really tough to win at Punchestown, jumped the last well, and yeah, I know it didn't. I actually shared a car back from Kempton with Robert Power, and I know her winning down there didn't surprise him.
She was much the best in this race, wasn't she?
She was, and I'd say she stays really well. So I think she's a good mare, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. Very likeable. I like what she did in the straight. Right, we're going to stick with Henry de Bromhead's runners. We're going to stick with Limerick also and have a look at Semeski, who won the maiden hurdle on the 29th.
And this fella holds an entry to DRF, and that's why we picked him out. Look, he won. This is an auction maiden hurdle at Limerick that he won under Mike O'Connor. He sat in mid-division. He jumped really well, but he always looked like a horse that was in a grade too low for him. Mike was trying to slow him down and keep him in the mid-division. He was always getting a bit closer, a bit clumsy at the middle hurdle down the back, but he pinged the second last, pinged the last, and he's gone away and won. But this is a restricted race. He'd want to be doing what he's done in this contest.
Yeah. OK, so he built on that promise from Fairy House. We've got a significant hurdle race at Haydock this Saturday. One in Britain, yes. Let's have a look at the betting. It's the Skybet Supreme Trial Rossington Main. It's been won by John Bunn in the past. Royal Infantry is the 4-7 favourite. Peacenik 9-2. Dedicated Hero 6-1, and it's 10-1 and upwards the rest. Royal Infantry for the Skeltons won an introductory hurdle over the course and distance quite comfortably.
Yeah, he did. Royal Infantry, and yeah, look, again, he's tough. He jumps and he keeps going. And look, we've kind of getting a bit tight in time, Lydia, and we ran out a couple of horses, but like we never got near Sounds Victorious, who looks really tough. Joystick, there was a couple of Fairy House today, and Kiss Will, and even Fishery Lane. So like there's lots of numbers coming towards the novice hurdles as the season keeps going. And as I said a few minutes ago, with restrictions on handicaps, you're going to end up with bulk in those races.
You mentioned Kisswell news just in, he and Fishery Lane having won today. 2 miles it was, but I was looking at the way he did it and his pedigree. Surely he's a stayer, isn't he?
And the way he works at home.
Right.
I don't think from what the Paul told us last week about picking horses not to ride work, I'm not so sure he'll ride Kisswell too much work either. But yeah, he does look like a horse that would improve for going a bit further, but he was mightily impressive.
Okay, and Fishery Lane, of course, went later on the same card. He was 5th in the Cheltenham bumper at the end of last season. Right, we're going to take another pause, and when we return, we'll be talking about the mares who are novices. Okay, this is perhaps the most baffling race that we're going to tackle today. Let's have a look at the betting for the Dawn Run Mares Novices Hurdle. A Grade 2, Maureen, 5-1 joint favourite with 6.5 with Paddy Power, and then it's 10-1 and upwards the rest. Now, Maureen, we've seen once. She's won a bumper at Punchestown in January 2024 for Willie Mullins. Patrick was on board, and that's enough to make her joint favourite for the Dawn Run.
I don't see how it has, and especially not after we have a look at 6.5 in a minute. Yeah, look, Maureen, she's not far away from running. She's schooled plenty well, but there's a couple of ways looking at that bumper. She went and she won. She was really well named. I don't think she's any relation to Faugheen's even.
She is, her dam's an unraced half-sister.
An unraced half-sister. She's really well named. But yeah, look, she won a bumper, but I think to me, looking at that, even for a match bet right now, 6.5 versus Maureen, I know which one I'd prefer to have my money on.
Okay, this is an update from Connections. So this is from James Fenton, who is the Cheltenham Racing Club manager, and he regularly tweets on the subject as well. If you follow him on X, he's also put up a video of Maureen working recently. He said that Paul Townend has done a lot of schooling on her. She jumps very well. She was always a very natural jumper. She pricks her ears a couple of strides before a hurdle and takes it on and gets down nice and low. We just need the right race and the right ground for her now, and she's all set. Right ground?
I think the ground we have at the moment. It's just a mare's maiden hurdle, I suppose. But look, she's going pretty well, but she'll have to go well.
She will. Now, you mentioned twice that you were quite impressed with 6.5. Take it away.
I was. Look, Cuala Mila booked out to make the run here. Willie ran, Kimmy DeMay, who sat behind her, and 6.5 was in behind. Bit high and a bit awkward at the first hurdle, and 5 had pulled well clear of the remainder of the field by the time they got to the third hurdle. And she jumped up by Keith Donoghue by Paul Townend at the hurdles up to Ballyhack and got behind Cuala Mila down to the fourth last hurdle. And I loved it from here. When she jumps the third last hurdle, Keith has to stoke her up and get her going. And you're thinking, wow, is this filly going to find enough? Find enough. She absolutely took off, pinged the second last, scoots down to the last hurdle, jumped it really well, and galloped every step of the way to the line. Like, to me, I loved what I saw there, and especially with that mare's hurdle being on the new course, 2 miles and 1, you need a bit of stamina. That was 2-2 at Fairy House. She was a flat maiden winner. She won a bumper. I really, really liked her.
Yeah, and she was progressive on the flat as well, particularly as she moved up and tripped to 14 furlongs. And of course, she was third in the Iris Cesarovic as well in the final start.
Yeah, she was. I think she just, I don't know, you're looking at it, you've 2 favourites at 5-1 apiece, and there's a whole book of form with one, and one bumper run with the other.
Not the biggest.
No, but she can jump.
Oh, definitely.
And she's professional. Like, you're even looking at Maureen, so she's had 1 run the bumper.
Yeah.
If she runs in a maiden hurdle, is she going to get another run before Cheltenham? I wouldn't think so. She's taking a horse with 2 runs to taking on a filly as professional as that.
I think professionalism is the key as well.
Big time.
Because she's going to have that advantage over almost all of her rivals, if not all of them.
And it's even racing experience, not talking about that. She hasn't got professional experience jumping, but she has it racing, and there's no substitute for that.
Right, okay. We've got an auspiciously named Maureen. How about the auspiciously named Aurora Vega, who won at Fairyhouse?
Yeah, I made up for a pretty disappointing or tame effort at Wexford, I suppose. Prior to that, I think it was Wexford, but Paul booked her out in front. This was at Fairyhouse as well. Steady enough gallop, Mongebello. Castus Bell is rated 113. Paul is a switchy sweep. Now, she's kind of ran around and ran in deep to a couple of hurdles early in the race. For a filly who's had a few runs, you wouldn't, she almost looked half green. There was no need for her to put in an extra stride there, and Paul always had to keep the pressure on her. Her jumping did warm up well. I don't know. We got a good view of the ambulance there. I think she jumped that one quite well. And as they came down from Ballyhack and into the home straight, it's the grey horse behind gets quite tight there, Mongebello, and Paul gets away from her on the Laura Vega down to the last hurdle, and she sees it out. But even her head from here home, it kind of half seems to be out and sideways. Not sure why, but to me, she doesn't jump like her mammy and doesn't stick her head down like her either.
Yeah. I couldn't work out whether she was awkward or raw, but she's had quite a bit of experience. Actually, not a lot, but...
Not a lot, but enough to be more professional than that.
And I did have jumping warmed up. That's actually what I got written down here.
Yeah.
Sort of, that's as complimentary as I could manage to be, really.
Yeah.
Right, let's head to Britain, and again to Boxing Day at Kempton, and we saw Kindsime win for Nicky Henderson and Nico de Boinville.
Looked a fine filly physically to look at. Moonshine Man went a decent enough, well, I didn't go mad in front. This filly quite high there at the third hurdle, but was much better at the fourth hurdle on the Nico. Travelled quite strongly, ran into the bottom of the last hurdle, but look, first, or inexperienced, you wouldn't mind it. Jumped the second last really well. Does look green a bit then. Took her a bit of time to pick up, had to go a bit right at the last. Bo Quayle is inside her, and I think she finds plenty and goes all the way to the line to win. You'd imagine a stiffer test would suit her, and you would assume she will run again in the near future. But yeah, it was a good start. She was well fancied, and what more could she do but win? She
looks like she's got speed, doesn't she? She's got a turn of foot there, hasn't she?
Yeah, but she lengthened as well. I thought she did look green enough, like she would improve for... I thought she might improve for another run.
And she too wouldn't be the largest framed mare.
Yeah, I thought she looked big enough there. But you have to see her
in real life.
Yeah.
IRL. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look at this Taunton Mares Novices Hurdle. It was a listed event over the New Year period, and this featured Jubilee Alpha. Now, she'd run into Listen to Your Heart previously at Newbury, shaped pretty well, but finished third behind her. They took each other on again. Listen to Your Heart, admittedly, was conceding weight, but I really like this winner.
So did I. I think that there was two fillies I really like, 6.5 on this one. Lines up on the outside here at Taunton. You've Hollygrove, Catch, Kitty Foyle, Listen to Your Heart of Skeletons in the white colours. But I love this filly. Jumped the first, settled in behind the North Valley Racing Syndicate colours. Good jump at the second. And these were rocking along when they got down to here. 34, 5 miles an hour down here past the stands. And Jubilee Alpha was always going well. Makes a little bit of a mistake at the 7th, but nothing really to it. Across to the third last hurdle here. I like what she does from here home and how Harry Cobden has to ride her. Puts down there, but you're never thinking she's not going to win. Jumps the second last well, gets to Listen to Your Heart and wins under hands and heels riding. And goes all the way to the line. She's a lot to like about her, I think.
Yeah, I liked her a lot as well. I thought she was really good, Jubilee Alpha, and she's clearly learned plenty from her debut. She travels really strongly, and I know she was receiving weight from Listen to Your Heart, but she is well beaten.
She was well beaten. If you have to put them at levels and you kind of thought, which one do you want? I'd like Jubilee Alpha.
And how about Paul Nicholls and Mares? Because you wouldn't necessarily associate him...
No, I can't think of a really good Mary Trent.
Was Miranda his?
Oh. Yes. No Need for Alarm might have been the best filly I wrote from, but no, he didn't tend to buy too many either. And I don't know, is ditch it really suited to fillies? I'm sure you could train them there, but it was never something he specialised in.
I suppose it's changed, isn't it? Lots of trainers have probably pivoted more towards mares since the expansion in the black type programme for mares.
Yeah, it is, and geldings are getting hard enough to find as well. Good ones anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so we've come to the end of the novice hurdlers. Who would you pick out, do you feel, are at the head of each of the divisions for you at the moment?
I I think there's huge improvement to come from Salvatore Mundi, but I would feel Romeo Coolio is at the head of that 2 mile division. I think Corbetts the board, I'd love to see him again. I think he's a very, very good horse.
You're very keen on him. Why?
I just think you can't miss 8 out of the 9 hurdles and still win. I think that's always a sign of a good horse, and I think that's what Corbetts the board did. I thought Final Demand was very good below at Limerick. Be interesting to see whether he goes 2.5 or does he go up to, would he go up to 3 miles? Mightn't have to. He's a really good jumper. Thought Work Ahead was good.
You haven't mentioned Salvatore Mundi.
Is that what did I say first?
I didn't think you said him first. Did you mention him first? Oh gosh, sorry, I missed that. Sorry, apologies. I usually hang on every word.
I thought I did. I do like Salvatore Mundi. I think there's barracks of potential, but he has to get more professional. Do I think he deserves to be favourite? I wouldn't think so. I think Romeo Coolio has achieved more.
We had a roadie writing in saying, I think the tide is turning, Britain will do really well.
Could do.
You like the new Lion? I
like the new Lion, yeah. I'm a big fan of Potter's Charm. I think the Tristan Davises have maximised the chances they have with him, and have given themselves a chance with him. I like that mare of Paul's, Jubilee Alpha. Did I see a Mondigo? Was the only one I saw really. He's an Albert Bartlett horse yet. Maybe something else will crop up. The horse we watched winning at Haydock of Skelton's maybe. No.
Not to labour the point, but why do you think that Corbetts de board, is going to do better over hurdles? We've had the Jasmine DeVoe discussion. Why will he do better?
Corbetts de board?
Yeah.
Because Jasmine DeVoe and Salvatore Mundi, whilst they had different upbringings, I suppose. Jasmine DeVoe was trained to be a pointer. Salvatore Mundi originally started over hurdles in France, whereas Corbetts de board was bought from the Derby sale and his first run was in a bumper. I don't necessarily think he would have had the same jumping as a younger horse as the other two, and therefore, in my own tin pot way, I think he can improve the most jumping wise of the 3 of them.
Okay, understood.
3 of them even.
Yeah, understood. Okay, interesting. Right, okay, we've got some significant chases coming up this weekend. One of them would be the horse and jockey hotel chase at Turles on Sunday. Appreciated and Classic Getaway, the likes of those entered?
Yeah, it's look, Grade 2 race, competitive contest. Appreciated Gentleman to Me is in there, Classic Getaway, Journey with Me, French Dynamite. Plenty of fashionable names in there. None of them taking the chance of going to the DRF because none of them want to have a look at Gallop in the Champs. So they're all going to the horse and jockey and 2 mile 6. I suppose it's a bit like the Fleur de Lis, really, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, the Fleur de Lis is at Windsor on Sunday as well. The likes of Gigello in there, but also Indiana Dream. Now with John Joe and AJ O'Neill, used to be with Willie Mullins. What do you make of that?
I'd imagine, look, Willie had 2 goals with him. Might have even had 3 goals with him. Couldn't keep him sound.
Win one of each again.
Yeah, couldn't keep him sound, so I'd imagine JP decided maybe the Gallop of Jackdaws might suit him better, straight line up a hill. Be great to get him back on the track, and the best of luck to John Joe and AJ with him. Decent horse, lacks a lot of experience, doesn't he?
He does.
No experience.
You mentioned that Gallop. What's the key difference there that you?
Well, Williams has bends on it, and the one in Jackdaws, the last time I was there, I think was pretty straight. It was straight up the hill, didn't it?
And so the turning puts pressure on?
It does. Turning can put pressure, and Willie's Gallop is deeper. The one in Jackdaws, because of the hill, doesn't need to be as deep. It's a sounder surface. You've got to try something new with him.
Absolutely, and it'd be great to see him showing what he's got.
Jerry, he's won run over fences in his life, hasn't he?
Yes, won it.
You see, we asked the question, what's a novice? To me, he's still a novice. I know it was 2 years ago, but he's had 1 run. To me, a novice is supposed to mean inexperienced, so it shouldn't be a time, it should be the number of runs you have. Well,
it's potentially up against the likes of Ahoy Senor, Gigello and Protectorat. I mean,
yeah, why wouldn't you? After one run over
sounds
fences.
Quite straightforward to me. No, Jerry Colombe, of course, in the Fleur de Lis.
What do you call him? First Street can run in the novice chase. Is that his name?
Who?
Nicky Henderson's horse of Mrs. The purple colours. Oh, big slow fella. He's black.
Shall I give you some time to think?
It'll take a while.
Yeah, OK. I'm going to move on to the Clarence House in that time.
He's definitely not in that.
No, he definitely isn't. There's only 4 of them in that. And they are John Bon, Energumen, Edwardstone and Boot Hill. John Bon, 8-13, Energumen, 15-8. reminiscent of Shishkin versus Energumen in 2022 when Shishkin downed in Energumen. He's now 11 years of age. He's up against John Bon. And the interesting quote I thought from Nicky Henderson was, this was again in his interview today at Wincanton, "We think we are where we need to be for a mega clash."
Wow. I hope it's mega clash. Energumen's in good form as well. Has he had 2 goals in Clarence Houses, 1 at Ascot, 1 at Cheltenham? Neither have gone his way. Third time lucky?
Could be.
Could be.
Could be.
How likely is that though? At 11? 2 mile chasers? As you know, we had this conversation before. Moscow Flyer.
I know, but you have to go back a long way.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I don't know.
And Sky Max before that, which is years and years ago.
Who trained him?
Oh, God knows. Don't ask difficult questions. Do you remember the Nicky Henderson horse yet?
No.
No, OK.
First something.
Shall I close the programme?
First something. He said 95 runs over fences.
OK. Just...
It'll come to me.
But unfortunately,
He's running in the cross-country races now.
We're heading towards the end of the programme. Oh, you mean... Oh, I know who you mean, and his name isn't going to come. Thank you very much for causing that brain itch. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you this time next week. Take care.